Hey, Randy Joe here, and welcome to the first edition in the Soul September series. I've been looking forward to this one. Throughout the month of September, we're going to be listening to different soul albums, and of course, to kick things off, I feel like we need to react to, again, for the first time, I've never listened to this album before in my life. I've heard select songs, but for the first time ever, on the Randy Joe channel especially, we are listening to the entirety of Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. Now, this is a pretty lengthy project at about 86 minutes, I think, in length, just reaching under an hour and a half. It is a pretty massive double album, I feel like, for the soul genre. It is also a pretty massive album in general for soul, because as of right now, it is still the highest rated soul album of all time on Rate Your Music, and I believe Album of the Year, and is usually ranked the best soul album, period, by most. Now, that being said, before we get into it, I need to address the fact that I myself, I've said it I think once or twice in a previous video, am not a big Stevie Wonder fan. Now, before you click away, I just want to say the only reason I think Stevie Wonder has ever left a bad taste in my mouth was simply because the track on here, Isn't She Lovely, was played quite too often at a place I worked for 4 years. For some reason, the screaming, crying baby was significantly louder than everything else in the mix. And I just chalked that up to the radio at where I worked. And when I was in the warehouse, I would hear this baby crying and wailing, and it was a bit too much for someone who is working an 8-hour shift and just wants to go home. That being said, Stevie Wonder himself, I have not given much of a chance to. So, baby aside, I'm sure that's going to be a great track. But knowing how beloved this album is, knowing how much people still talk about it to this day, decades on, I am expecting this to be a pretty incredible album, and I'm sure my gripes of Stevie Wonder will be a thing of the past, and will be left with that job. So let's start with Love's in Need of Love Today. Ooh. Nice. Warm open. Just want to also say we'll be ending the track list with Another Star, as that was the original album's track list. The 4 bonus tracks were part of the EP that released at the same time, but were not part of the initial album. So again, Another Star will be the final one we react to today. But continuing. Good morning, friend. Oh, I've heard this song before. Here's your friend, what I'm about to say. He does have a fantastic voice. Just super soulful, as expected. I really like that thick bass line as well. And a gentle, almost like triangles, kind of jingling back and forth. The beautiful ooze. I really love the cadence in which he sings. Sort of up and down. Really, just sweet backup vocals. Emphasizing each line. That growl in his voice. Really just coasting along this smooth groove. With buttery vocals. I really like this sort of pleading delivery. Still a relevant topic today, you know? The hate never lets up. A sort of gentle simmering end. Oh! Some life just pumped back into it for a moment. Really sweet, well-paced track. That at 7 minutes feels like it withstands its length. And also, I gotta say, really great message to kick off the album, one of love. Really sets the tone for what this album is all about. Because you could tell, just from the cover, from that track, you're getting into something that is very funky, smooth, just beautiful, focused on the positives. You know, this is like a high. Let's go into Have a Talk with God. Ooh. And right into the funk, almost. Which we are covering funk as well this month. Don't get it twisted. R&B funk. Ooh. Speak to that God. Ooh. These backing vocals. I love how funky this sort of groove is. Although I'm not religious, I do stand by this message because the power of religion does save a person's life. I do think that is important. Does need to be stressed. And we've spoken on depression on this channel. We've spoken of themes of suicide quite a bit on this channel. And when those times get tough, I do think religion is a pretty strong motivator and factor that could go on to save many lives. So I certainly agree with Mr. Wonder in this context, despite not being that religious myself. I consider myself spiritual, for those wondering. I love this chorus. It's smooth, it's soulful, a little touch of gospel in it. And funky. Really great track. That's a great track, and it's quick too, at only 2.5 minutes. Let's go into Village Ghetto Land. Some synth. Didn't expect that.
Would you like to go with me down my dead end street?
Kind of a theatrical approach as well to this album.
Like to come see the people lock their doors while robbers laugh and steal.
Maybe bring it down to his roots, perhaps.
Beggars watch and eat their meals from garbage cans.
Some vivid pictures being painted there. It's so theatrical, this focus on the synth. Kind of classical, a touch of classical in there, it feels like, too.
It's a bloody laugh and drink, drunk to all the mad.
I really love the lyrics on this track. And the theatrical approach tied to it. It feels like we are watching a play. We are seeing these scenes, these vignettes of this ghetto land.
Be happy, village ghetto land.
No, I would not. This is like a classical political track, kind of. Nice juxtaposition. With feel like that one's just kind of poking fun a bit at the high class, the highbrow, by taking on the somewhat more theatrical, classical approach while adding a very real, realistic look at society, especially in this ghetto land that he speaks of. It's a nice contrast, and I think there's a touch of humor in it, while at the same time being almost like a call to act. Let's go into Contusion. Seems like this one is an instrumental. I love a nice funky, groovy instrumental, so let's do it. Oh. Oh my goodness. The drumming there rapidly segueing into these electric guitars. And this piano. I'm assuming that's Mr. Stevie Wonder on the piano there. This one's groovy. Heavy funk infusion. But also super jazzy too. Like a jazz fusion track. This would just as easily have fit in with the kind of jazz fusion albums we listened to back during Jazz July. Kind of remind me of Herbie Hancock in a way. And I'm loving it. Really takes on a life of its own. It's got a great energy. These female vocalists adding that more rich soul element. This is an incredible track. Really tight chemistry of all the band members here. Super dynamic and rich sound as we skitter along. Contusion's fantastic. Let's go to Sir Duke. We know it. This is a classic. Insane opening. Love those horns. It's so iconic. Kicks it off. Who doesn't like music? It's so groovy. Perfectly infectious in its sound. And just like he's saying, you can't help but move to this one. And it like controls you, possesses you. The power of music. I don't know why this is not a like song already. This is a fantastic, classic soul track. Love that shout out to all the classic jazz musicians there. It's like his own touching tribute to jazz. That golden age of jazz especially. I love that drum too. That sort of pounding sound. Pause. Sir Duke is a fantastic track. You don't need to hear that. You know that. Who doesn't know that? Sir Duke's a classic. Sir Duke is like a victory lap for Stevie Wonder when he's already put out a plethora of well-established, critically acclaimed albums before this one. I feel like Sir Duke really could have opened the album or ended the album because of such a grand feeling that it has. Crazy to me that he just threw it in as track 5 on a 17 track LP. It's like he just tossed it in the track list as if it's not such a massive sound, and I feel like such a beautiful tribute to music itself. That being said, it's a classic. It's Sir Duke. Let's go into I Wish. Not sure if I know this one, but I'm sure I have. I'm sure I've heard it. Something we can all relate to, can't we? Oh, I know this track. What am I talking about? The best of times. I love that Stevie, throughout this album, you know, I know this is like a tribute to life. I think he said that this is almost meant to be like an album full of songs that are like tribute to different moments throughout your life. But I just love how in touch and relatable he feels. And lots of humor in that too. And who doesn't love nostalgia? The horn work on this album, it's fantastic. Honestly, couldn't place who's doing what. It's such a massive personnel for this album. What can I say about this one? It's groovy. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's got a plethora of nostalgia seeped into the lyrics. Because we all wish we can go back to that childhood, our teenage years. This album has such a rich, dynamic, varied sound and instrumental. The atmosphere is just so in your face and explosive. It really pulls you in every direction. It's so just like warm and syrupy. I can't even describe the atmosphere of this album accurately because it's just so, again, just so varied and rich. Like, you look at the people involved and you honestly feel like they could all be on this track at once because of just how complex the rhythms are. And these horns. Such a showy sort of style, you know? Let's keep the good times going. Let's go into Knock Me Off My Feet. Which feels like it's slowing things down a bit here. Unfamiliar with this one. Ooh. Perfectly captures. Oh, that feeling of falling in love. Such a oh my goodness. That feeling of wanting to shout your love for someone from the rooftops kind of being echoed here, while at the same time you don't want to feel like you're smothering them. Maybe that's the bore line there. I love how perfectly he captures that feeling of falling in love, the almost like fear of being overwhelming, but at the same time wanting to just throw yourself, you know? Such a difficult way to navigate. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful lines. And I love the overdubbing of his own gorgeous, smooth voice. I love this. Just confession. Like giving in to love. Mr. Stevie Wonder. How does one capture that feeling so well? He figured out a way. How have I waited this long to listen to this album in full? God, it's so beautiful. I don't even think we're really quite halfway through. Maybe we're just hitting the halfway mark now. But holy cow, the first 7 tracks so far have just been so incredibly just rich. My least favorite might have been the opener, which I still really enjoyed. Let's just keep it going. Don't want to talk too much about the album until afterwards, so let's just keep it going track by track here. Pastime Paradise. Wait a minute. I had no idea. No idea that the Gangster's Paradise by Coolio was a sample of Stevie Wonder. I feel like a fool as somebody who listens to a plethora of hip-hop albums and for a while was bumping that Coolio album. Really should have paid more attention to the sample work there. But let's keep it going. God, it's a great sound. Wow. I feel like an idiot. But I'm sure that's a common thing now. Ooh. I like that. Was that a bass? That elevation. This is sort of like a dissection of, you know, kind of white people in power. How much they take for granted, perhaps. While those less fortunate seem to struggle. Or perhaps really just about humanity taking things for granted and not appreciating the life we have around us. Just passing time rather than enjoying it. Is that the concept? Let's go into Summersoft. Ooh. I like the crickets that ease into this track. So it's like a track about summer love going away, or just that beautiful sunny feeling. Really dissecting the seasons here, perhaps, and the mood that they evoke. Oh, this organ coming in. Just soaring. Very interesting track. I think it's really breaking down the passage of time, how things seem to move too briskly. You know, you need to take it you need to slow things down, almost like carrying on the pastime paradise themes. But I could be wrong. Ooh. I do love this keyboard work. The way it's kind of jolting around. I'll say this as we come to a close to that track. Summersoft is probably my least favorite. I do enjoy it. I just feel like kind of runs a little long, gets the point across pretty quickly, and it's just not as interesting to me as some of the other tracks. I think it's just about the passage of time and perhaps the swiftness of it, not appreciating the living in the moment, carrying on the themes of pastime paradise, but not as interesting to me as pastime paradise. Let's go into Ordinary Pain, closing out the first disc of this double LP. It's that heartbreak. We got like a child choir here. Could just be female vocalists, but it also feels like a children's choir. Ooh. Trying to swallow his pride here. This man's had his heart broken, but doesn't want to admit it, doesn't want to let it show. I really like this one. Feelings of heartbreak. Sung in a very sympathetic way. Ooh. I like how it's continuing to descend. Whoa! Getting funky. This again reminded me of Herbie Hancock. Oh, this girl is ripping into him, grabbing his heart. An important message that we all forget. Ooh. This woman is kind of like taunting our man here. Oh, now she's played him for a fool and slept with a friend. Some friend. Ooh. She's really ripping into her man here, who seems to be more flawed than we had seen. Perhaps he was sneaking around. Getting a taste of his own medicine seems to be the idea. Played this man like a fiddle. Some clever wordplay. Wow, I love that track. Really sets it up as a heartbreak track where you're sympathizing with this man. You're really feeling for him. You understand that heartbreak. But as you get to the second half, this woman steps forward, rips out the heart even further, and exposes the fact that this man has been, it would seem, playing her all along, cheating on her, and she's just doing the same to knock him down, give him a taste of his own medicine. And you can't help but in the end feel like they're both not great people, but you kind of understand her motives. So it kind of makes it somewhat humorous as we get to the second half, and super funky. Remind me of Herbie Hancock, especially in the keyboards, which got me a little curious. I checked the personnel, scroll on down, and who do we see under keyboards and hand claps? Mr. Herbie Hancock himself. Fantastic musician, and I feel like you can see his playing on this album. However, it could be other musicians too that I'm getting mixed in, but at least this sound of Herbie still feels kind of relevant. Perhaps that was also the Church of God choir as the backing vocals there. I could be wrong. Lots of backing vocals on this album. Now let's go into the second side of this album, Isn't She Lovely? Which, before I started this album, like I said, this was the track that, for many years, I feel like haunted me in a warehouse with the cries of Stevie's child. The song opens side 3 of Songs in the Key of Life and starts with a baby's first cry recorded during an actual childbirth, and then him bathing Aisha. Maybe I'm mispronouncing that. My apologies. In the final section of the mix. Okay. That's incredible that it opens up with an actual childbirth. I feel like you really don't capture the feeling of life like this album suggests more than an actual childbirth. Let's kick it off. Let's hear it. Let's bring that haunting memory back for me. There it is, being born. See, like this instrumental on those speakers at my old job was never this clear, that's for sure. It was always that baby. Never heard like the more kind of funky bass line on the background too. And sounds way better. Way better here. He's a great vocalist. Just born. Such a beautiful concept, you know, for a track. Oh, I love that stripped back instrumental there, and this harmonica. Kind of sounded like that baby's cry. Really captured the feeling of Stevie Wonder's newfound fatherhood. The second half of this track really just basking in such a rich instrumental. Oh. A bit piercing. Not sure how I feel about this segment. I think that's his daughter being bathed here, though. Oh. I love that rhythm there with the harmonica. Really took on a distinct riff there. What a beautiful player in that harmonica. I feel like he really just pours his soul into it as a tribute to his daughter here. Incredible track, way better now that I feel like I've heard it. Almost like hearing it for the first time, because in the past, only time I ever heard that was at my old job, and for some reason, like I said, the baby was piercing through those speakers and ruined that track for many years. Until now, because that is an incredible track that is much more rich and more dynamic than I remember. The only thing I would remove would be the bathing sounds. I feel like it is a bit too much in the second half at times. However, I understand the concept of including it as just really a touching tribute to fatherhood. But that harmonica really carries the whole thing in that back half especially. So let's go on to the next track here, Joy Inside My Tears. Much slower Very large, monumental sound to it, though.
I've always come to the conclusion
Ooh.
that blood is the
I like the slight reverb here, kind of feeling distant.
best can feel inside. I think you should know.
I love how soulful and funky this album is. Gonna dial it back into the soul, but still has that kind of funky bass. I love those really spacey synths as well. Ooh. That bass line is so funky, the way it descends, kind of twists, mutilates. Well, the rest of the track is so slow. I love Wonder's voice on this one. Feels very vulnerable. Very kind of emotional. I really like the slow, kind of prodding instrumental of this one. Nice pacing. Almost has like an end credits kind of vibe to it. I really like that one. I like the pacing of it. I like a slower approach to it. Just as like a continually building sound. Will these synths lead into the next? Doesn't seem to be. Let's go into Black Man. Diving right back into the funk, the groove. Really kind of thick bass lines. And those horns back to the forefront. Ooh. Getting quite political. Really dissecting America on this one here. Still a relevant track all these years on. A much more all-encompassing track than I would have expected, including even the white people and women. But I don't think he's using it in a literal sense there. Kind of dissecting America while at the same time celebrating America. Celebrate for the right reasons, I think, is his message. Many of which people go astray. Ooh. Getting a little spacey in this instrumental. That funky sound. Everything feels like it's kind of bouncing off one another, all these instrumentals. The only thing sounding consistent, maybe these trumpets, these horns. Ooh. Breaking it down. Oh. I like the direction this is going. We're in class now. Shouting them out. Ooh. Incredible track. Incredible track that recognizes all races and really just the kind of importance of, seems like American history here. Kind of like a tribute to America, recognizing the development of America, while at the same time kind of criticizing, it would seem, the direction that people have taken America, in the sense that the lack of recognition seems to be a more prevalent issue. Fantastic, groovy track, super fun. Again, Herbie Hancock vibes mixed with Stevie Wonder's own unique, beautiful, soulful touch. Let's go into the next track here, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. We'll just say the I Am Singing track. There's no way I'll correctly guess that word. I like the clicking. Kind of sounding like we're going to South America with this. Not sure how I feel about this one. Very synthy instrumental. That feels very cold. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. It's got a nice kind of atmosphere to it, I guess. But it doesn't grab me as much as the other tracks do. Also kind of feels like a video game soundtrack from the 90s. Very ahead of its time, I guess, in that sense. Let's keep it going. Let's go into If It's Magic. Last one didn't do it for me, but can't all be winners.
If it's magic,
It's harp kicking things off.
then why can't
Delicate.
it be everlasting? Like the sun that always shines,
I like the focus on his voice here.
quenches every thirst. So, if it's special,
I do like this one. It's much more delicate in nature.
why aren't we as careful
It feels very careful in its delivery.
as making keeping danger from a child?
It's just an examination of love on this track.
To every
A core concept of the album.
throughout the universe, for there's enough for everyone.
I like this one. Ooh, this harmonica sliding in. Very stripped back. Just a harp and Mr. Wonder. The core concept of the album is very obviously love. Dissects it in just about every way, and I feel like that track is just the most delicate of them all. Very careful in its delivery. Very poetic as well. And Stevie Wonder, just such a buttery smooth voice, you know. He does a great a cappella. Let's go into As. Oh, that's a sweet sentiment. Again, a strong sense of love as the main theme here. Ooh. Oh, I like this chorus. A touch of gospel coming in. That's choir. I think that's the Church of God. It certainly does not. I love this chorus. It's got such an enveloping tone. Just pure nonsense in the lyrics too. Explaining the pure love to the very end. Oh, and our drummer too. Rattling away on that right side. Chorus of nonsense to explain this pure love that'll never come to an end. Ooh. Diving back into the kind of jazzy sound. Is that Hancock, perhaps? Oh, I like the claps. I also love seeing how many of the studio musicians on this one all contribute to the claps. It almost feels like such a unified unit. Oh my goodness. What is this? Such a growly vocal. Wonder channeling his Armstrong here. I love this sort of spiraling sound. Almost like everything's falling off. The wheels are flying off this bus. We spin out of control. A confession of love. Oh. And this rustic guitar sliding in too. This church is Church of God really taking it away here. Oh, that does it for Az. Just like a stark cutoff. I feel like disc 2 has been full of tracks that really work as sort of like an end credits of sorts, you know, like a finale, with just how kind of epic they feel or how kind of grandiose they are. Az especially has like this end credits feeling, especially when you reach that second half where it's just a continual onslaught of really silly kind of like metaphors or similes. Let's go into another star to close it out. This is the final track. I felt like the last one would have worked perfectly as a final track. I think If It's Magic would have worked as a final track. Black Man or even Joy Inside My Tears would have all been great final tracks. Will they be better or as good as Another Star? Let's find out. I feel like this really needs to close things out. It's such a grand album. 8.5 minutes. Oh. I do like this opener. Lots of, almost like a another culture, like world music influence. Ooh. And the horns coming in. Okay, maybe this is a kind of closing credits. I like these like bongos too in the background that are buried in the mix. Really giving himself entirely to this woman. Pouring out his love. I love the really showy horns and trumpets throughout this album. Feels very Hollywood for some reason. Very kind of like orchestral as well. I've already finished the lyrics. Seems like over half the track is this instrumental to ride it out. Like I said, a very end credit sort of tone. Ooh. Breaking it down. I love the backup vocals. So it's gentle. Been there throughout the entire track. This bongo. Sounds like a bongo. Love the world music influence on this track here. Really monumental kind of orchestral arrangement here. Oh, a little flute coming in as well. Is that a first on the album? That's Bobby Humphrey, I think. Oh yeah, this is certainly the end credits that I was looking for. Such a grand finish to such a grand album. Very groovy, very funky, very soulful. And our flutist is still there, sharing the floor. And we're doing a long fade out to close out this album. And that does it for Songs in the Key of Life. Incredible outro for Another Star. It's such a grand finish. Really matches the entire album's sort of kind of concept with its very grand style to close things out. It feels so epic. It feels so monumental. It has a great plethora of instruments all swirling together to really feel like you're getting like a finale. But I think the fact that a lot of these tracks, not just side 2, originally I said side 2, but even looking at side 1, a lot of these feel like they would be such powerful openers or powerful closers to albums, really speaks volumes to just the entirety of the album at hand. Considering I said Sir Duke would really work as an opener or as a closer, as a love for music. Well, that's only at track 5. You got a ton of tracks long after that still match that energy of Sir Duke, just like I was saying at the time when I listened to it, which really, I think, again, speaks volumes to just how grand and epic this hour and a half feels. I really feel like this is the most, cohesive, complex, and diverse sort of Stevie Wonder album you could possibly get. He really blends in every element of funk, soul, R&B, gospel, really in jazz as well, really blending it all together, and exploring each sound in separate tracks to the furthest extents imaginable. I love the concept of this record. It's like a dissection of love for his wife, for his child, for music, for people, for culture, for life in general. And it feels like you are just getting like the most syrupy, most beautiful, most complete package imaginable over an hour and a half. No track here is particularly bad. I did say Summersoft and I Am Singing to be my least favorites, but even then, I mean, they're pretty solid tracks. Summersoft is one actually that I think, maybe it just didn't jump out to me but will grow on me. I think I Am Singing is the only one I would probably remove if I absolutely had to. But even then, every track here is so complete and unique in its vision. And the compositions too, the tightness of the band and all the members together feels like everyone is putting their best foot forward, putting their best efforts together to create one unique sound, while at the same time individually still feel like they are like a star of their own show. But it's not their own show, it's a Stevie Wonder show, and it feels like it because his DNA and his vision and his lyrics and his beautiful soulful voice are just like all over this thing. Even on Contusion, which was a pure instrumental track that feels very jazz fusion-esque, still feels like it has its own Stevie Wonder kind of flair to it. Like no one else could have created that. I also want to say one last thing before I completely close things out too. The pacing of this record at an hour and a half does not feel like an hour and a half. I feel like the longer tracks actually somehow felt shorter than some of the shorter tracks here because they explore the instrumentals so in depth with such a sense of ease and grace that they fly by, and I listened to this whole thing, hour and a half. It felt less than an hour, to be completely honest with you. I think that's just the expertise of the catchiness and the grooviness of this record. Fantastic album, honestly, and a great way to kick off Soul September. because I do feel like this is the quintessential soul album, the must listen to soul album. But that does it for today's video. If you like this video and you want to watch more reactions to soul albums throughout Soul September, go ahead and subscribe and recommend an album down below. A lot of soul albums I want to cover if we can, so we'll see what we can do. But some old, some new, recommend them. Maybe next we'll do a little bit of Marvin Gaye. Maybe next we'll do a little bit of Frank Ocean. We'll explore the old and the new. As always, my name is Randy Joe. I appreciate you watching, and I'm signing off.